Scientists think that we might be traveling between universes in our sleep. I guess that also seems to relate to interdimensional levels. The observer effect, the central pillar of quantum physics, reveals that the act of observation is not merely a passive reception of information, but rather is a creative act as well. We are all knowingly or unknowingly participating in every moment of our lives. This process is tantamount to the same kind of dynamic creativity that we engage in with our night dreams. In a dream, the unmanifest potentialities, the wave function of dream possibilities within the conscious, depending upon the unconscious, depending upon the psyche of the dreamer, are actualized or dreamed up into specific appearances through and as the fabric of the dream. In a typical non-lucid dream, the dreamer relates to the forms of the dream as if they exist objectively, separate from themselves, which is to say, just like most of us relate to waking life, and that reacts to and becomes conditioned by the appearances within the dream as if they are other than their own mind, which further conjures up the dream to manifest as if it's objectively real and other than themselves in a self-perpetuating feedback loop whose generative source is our own mind. When we become lucid in dream, the idea is not to control the dream, which would be an expression of our lucidity, hence the spell of the separate self. For in trying to control the dream, we're still relating to it as something other than ourselves. Rather, when we become lucid in a dream, we become naturally in control of ourselves, which is to say, in touch with our own sovereign power of co-creating reality. When we become lucid, our relationship to the forms of the dream changes, for once we recognize that the dream is our own energy appearing seemingly outside of ourselves, we're able to creatively flow with the manifestations of the dream in a different way than when we were entranced by its forms. When quantum physics was first formulated in the early part of the 20th century, it was during a time of great collective asleepness. Quantum physics, creation, discovery can be seen as an inkling of the burgeoning awakening in the collective unconscious expressed through the realm of science. The process that quantum physics is articulating regarding how an observer, participant evokes, hence dreams up reality, is generally unfolding unconsciously in most humans, which is to say most of us in the waking dream of life are dreaming non-lucidly. A question that naturally arises is what would happen as more of us become increasingly aware of the world-shaping creative power that we are wielding, which is to say, how would things change as we wake up to our powers of quantum creation? How would an amplification of our awareness of our power of quantum creation affect these very powers as we're more and more consciously using them? Like quantum physics reflects back to us, oftentimes asking the right question is more important than finding the right answer. How would the world itself change as more of us become fluent with what quantum physics is revealing to us about our incredible but mostly untapped and unconscious power to co-create reality? I find myself imagining that the world would reflect back our inner realization of its quantum nature and would manifest in a much more fluid, plastic, malleable, and dreamlike way. And how would the realization of the dreamlike nature of our universe change our experience of ourselves, as well as our understanding of who we truly are? I can only imagine. How would applying the power of lucid observer participancy to the theory of quantum physics itself transform the field of quantum physics, not to mention the very physics of our existence? Could the very nature of quantum physics be expanded so as to register and reflect this awakening force of lucidity that's flowing through our species? Might quantum physics as a theory become transformed by its and our realizations into new and more coherent versions of itself? I find myself imagining that this realization would spawn a new, awakened generation of lucid quantum physicists and dreamers. Instead of Generation X, they would be Generation QP, quantum physics, or maybe Generation LD, lucid dreaming, this new generation of quantum physics lucid dreamers would be able to creatively dream up an enriched, deeper, and more rigorous articulation of quantum physics, which would go far beyond the present formulation, as it would more elegantly reflect and codify the creative role that our consciousness plays in the very unfoldment of the universe, or so I imagine. My best friend, a longtime student of quantum physics, in a conversation he had years ago with David Bohm, shared with a great physicist that when he becomes lucid in his night dreams, he does physics experiments. Bohm was very excited by this, saying that it was exactly the type of research that was needed for advancement in the field. He shared that he had done the same thing in a few of his lucid dreams. My friend was struck by how Bohm was taking seriously that night dreams had its own physics that was worthy of being studied, an idea that was summarily dismissed by most other physicists. Bohm was of the opinion that it's very important for physicists to carry on more careful physics experiments in their lucid dreams in order to compare how the physics of the dream world compares to the physics of the waking state. For the way consciousness intervenes in the waking dream seems slower and less obvious due to the apparent density of the waking dream. He was convinced that through this kind of physics research, we could uncover the fact that there was still yet to be discovered the articulated physics of the dream state that was connected but different in some important ways from the physics of the physical world. And Bohm confided to my friend that he felt that lucid dreaming very likely held an important key to a deeper understanding of the connection between consciousness and the manifestation of our experience in the world, in both our night and waking dream worlds. Bohm humorously added that doing physics research in our lucid dreams would solve the ever-present challenge of obtaining funding for cutting-edge physics research, as in our lucid dreams we could potentially dream up our own laboratories, research assistants, and whatever other kinds of support we would need. Though night dreams and the waking dream appear to be different, the question arises, are they deep down in their essence actually different, or are they made of the same dream stuff? All of the spiritual wisdom traditions on this planet from time immemorial, including quantum physics, have pointed out the dreamlike nature of reality. What if we were to take seriously what these converging wisdom streams are reflecting back to us about the dreamlike nature of our situation, and step more into the dream, so to speak? What would happen if we continued our explorations to the nature of reality, hence doing our physics experiments in this light? How would it change our experience to interpret our experience as if we really were in a dream? The idea is not just to do physics experiments in our lucid dream, but to recognize that life itself is potentially the dream within which we can become lucid. The more we recognize the dreamlike nature of our waking experience, the more our waking life will reflect back this realization and manifest itself in a dreamlike way, thereby increasing our lucidity even further. In a positive feedback loop, or our ever increasing lucidity, driven by consciousness, builds on itself and at a certain point becomes self-generating, reminiscent of Wheeler's idea of the universe as a self-excited circuit. Adding lucidity to our experience of life is a powerful spiritual practice, the form of dream yoga. Becoming lucid in our waking dream changes everything. And could this bridge the blending of science and spirit provide humanity with a more refined and integral map of our reality, which could lead us back, both individually and collectively, to living, sharing, and having an enriched experience of the intrinsic wholeness that currently lies implicit, but yet unlived and largely unfulfilled within every human being? This is a real potential and a very realizable outcome of lucid dreaming quantum physics, a human world that is able to collectively embrace its power of open-ended lucid dreaming so as to dream into physical reality the many as yet unrealized yearnings that lie deep within the most sacred visionary chambers of the human heart. And this is written by Paul Levy. It's on Soul Ask. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Please support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.